Self-driving cars are coming. That is unavoidable. The only question is, will they be here in 6 months, 6 years, or 6 million years? But they will be here at some point. So we're going to explore some of the possibilities of what this could mean for the betterment of society. We're going to be talking about parking lots, which is why today I am joined by Road Guy Rob, a YouTuber who has 47 million views, something like that, over his career of making amazing videos about highways, about bridges, about all kinds of things. I found him because he did a lot of great coverage of the big bridge going up maybe someday soon between Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. And when I say between Vancouver and Portland, I have to specify Washington because people think that's a long bridge if it stretches to Canada. It is not. And so we're going to have some chats about this. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Oza.
Brian.
Good to see you. This is a lot of fun. Good to finally meet you. I believe this is happening sooner than later. There are people who are saying it's definitely happening in June. I think that may be optimistic, but these are some of the same people who said it would happen in June of previous years, going back a number of years. So I will withhold judgment if it does not happen in June, but it is coming.
Getting the bridge, the bridge.
Oh, no. I meant self-driving. The bridge is not coming in June.
Oh,
and
I wanted to clarify because I think that's pretty optimistic to get construction kicked off that fast.
No, I don't think they'll agree on a final design by June. But for those who don't know, the bridge between Portland and Vancouver is very old. It's 100 years old. It is one of those old steel, what would you call that style of construction?
Yeah, a steel girder. It's in sections. Yeah. It sits on columns. At the bottom of the columns are wood. So there's some good reasons they want to replace that bridge. Earthquakes.
It is a very old, and it's very narrow. And so a new bridge has to be high enough for boat traffic, but low enough because it's in the flight path for PDX. So it's, and of course,
and an airfield that's right next to the bridge. Whoever approved that
airfield
in the early 1900s. Yeah, there's some people taking off in their Cessnas and they go right over the tower right there.
Wow. It's
crazy.
Genius is what it is. And of course, it's very easy to build something that is both low and high and wide, especially when you're on 1,000 years of silty riverbed. So it's really got a lot of boxes to check. Okay. So when we're talking about self-driving cars, we're not going to say if, we're not going to say when, we're just going to say if. You've made a number of videos about parking lots and the problems with parking lots. Overbuilding them, underbuilding them, really overbuilding them. Can we, would if everybody had self-driving cars, would we even think of parking lots in the same way? What would loading and unloading look like? It'd just be at the door, I assume.
There's an entire new field of engineering called curbside management because they know this is going to be an issue. They've been talking about this for 10 years. We start seeing it with like Uber and Lyft, right? Where you have a human driver drop you off, but what happens if you have like a small to medium sized concert venue and then everybody orders their Uber at the same time and you have that little tiny curb in front of the venue and all of a sudden 100 Ubers show up. And then, okay, well, now what do you do at the airport? We've seen that where, okay, how do you manage the curb? It used to be in the early days of Lyft, back when they had the little mustache on the cars, they just pull right up to the curb with you. And now, I know here at LAX, they have an entire like Uber and Lyft area, Harry Reid Airport in Las Vegas, an entire deck of the parking garage just for moving people in and out. Self-driving is going to be similar where, okay, you dispatch a car, everybody leaves, the Dallas Cowboys game at the same time and they all, okay, come pick me up. Well, those cars are all going to slam the curb at the same time. And so, if you want some fun, go Google curbside management, look at some of these engineering websites of engineering practitioners and things whose entire discipline area is trying to figure out for states and cities and consulting firms, like what are we going to do, as this takes off? But that's assuming you're dispatching a car you don't own, right? Because it can be in use. Do parking lots really go away if I take my car to the Dallas Cowboys game and then I say, okay, car, drop me off. I'll let you know when I'm done. That car has to go park somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is also street side parking 3 miles away. That's free.
Yeah, and then how does the neighborhood in Arlington feel when all of a sudden, this guy with a California license plate, every time there's a game day, there's all these out of state plates that just come and plug up every. When I was in college, I lived near the university's football stadium, and we had a parking lot that the university said, okay, you need this permit to park here, and people don't care. And they want to go to that game. They're just going to park wherever they want. And so already you have issues around large venues of parking issues. Just because the car can drive itself doesn't mean that issue goes away. And like you say, what if the car's smart and says, okay, I'm going to go 2 cities over and park? Okay, well now you've just spread the problem.
Well, here's an interesting one that Kyle shared with me from his trip to China. He was with a friend.
Okay.
They went to a large mall, and they were in an Avatar 9 or something like that. It's a modern SUV, an electric one. Those are my dogs. For those of you at home, by the way, uh, it's a fancy new car, and it had a self parking feature. Kyle said, "There's no parking. What do we do? We get out of the car, we hit park, and let's just go shop." And the car will wander around until it finds a parking spot, and then it'll park. And if it doesn't find one, it'll just keep circling until you're done shopping and then pick you up. And that's a great solution for 3 cars, maybe not for 300. So you get
Right.
to an issue of scalability there.
You run into an issue of Manhattan. I've only been to Manhattan once, and I did it wrong. I borrowed a car and I drove and saw all the sights, and so I've seen the World Trade Center Memorial from the red light in my car. I saw the Empire State Building as I kind of stuck my head out the window, going down uh, Fifth Avenue or whatever. So the issue is, let's say I didn't park my car because it was $40 to park. So I want to have dinner in Manhattan. So I just tell the car, drop me off, and I can buy a heck of a lot of gas for $40. And who cares about the traffic? I'm not even in the car. Are we going to end up in this weird dystopia where you're sitting in horrible urban traffic and you look around and every car around you's empty? And then you're going to start seeing ad campaigns from the city and the State Department of Transportation in the way we see ad campaigns encouraging carpooling, but nobody does it. And now this ad campaign is don't run your car empty. You know,
Right.
I self-driving is going to make traffic far busier because already anybody who doesn't have access to driving now has access to driving. People under 16, the elderly, the disabled, people with mobility issues, they now can be licensed drivers just like you and me because they don't have to operate the car. So you're
Right.
going to already have probably doubling the traffic doing that. People are going to be able to do longer journeys because you can take a nap. So you can live in Fresno and work in San Francisco because you just get up at 3:30 in the morning, grab your blankie, get in the back seat, and have it. So what? Well, traffic is not just the number of cars on the road, but it's multiplied by the distance you travel. And so I'm saying, as self-driving cars are going to increase traffic enormously. And the final piece of that is electric vehicles are going to make the cost per mile lower than it's ever been because you're going to be able to toss something on the roof of your house to charge it up. So if you have this self-driving vehicle with an electric battery that you can charge at home on solar, and you're not reliant on the oil industry, now I can be in the car a long time, go a long time, have a lot of people do it because now instead of having a 2-car home, or maybe we're a 4-car home because I have a car for each of my kids so they can get to school. And the cost, you know what I mean? Like, this is a
Yes.
traffic bomb that's going to go off.
One of the arguments is that we wouldn't become 4-car homes, but that a 2-car home would become a 1-car or no car home. Because if if using a self-driving taxi is that cheap per mile, do you really want to hassle with owning one yourself? Especially if you don't
Sure.
drive all that much anyway. But that doesn't reduce the number of road miles. That just reduces the number of US parking spots or global parking spots that are needed. So higher utilization doesn't mean, yeah.
If I'm using a self-driving car to get my third grader, I don't have a third grader yet, but let's say I did, my third grader to school, do I want them getting in some dirty robo cab that somebody did something, befouled it, and there might be needles back there or a baggie of drugs? No, I could just go on Craigslist, buy somebody's, used self-driving electric car for 8 grand, and I just put liability only insurance on it because it's self-driving. And as I say, I think we're on the breaking point. It doesn't feel like it right now when the average car is $50,000 new and they're only making SUVs. Like, there's going to be a backlash to this, right, as the industry goes the other way. And to build it, once the batteries are cheap, it's so much cheaper to build an electric car. You don't have an exhaust manifold, an intake manifold, and a block, and a transmission, and all these other parts. You've got a cooling system, and you have an electric battery, and you have an electric motor, and then like a air conditioning system and windshield wiper sprayer. Like, it's really cheap and simple. And you're going to be able to keep these cars forever because there's nothing to break on them. It's like the flat panel TVs versus the old CRT TVs. Nobody, the CRT TVs, you get 5 years out of them and they were shot. I, I've got an LCD TV in the other room. Flat panel is 15 years old and it's working great. The electric cars are going to be the same way. There's going to be tons of used ones, and the homeowners won't even bat an eye picking up one car for every member of the family.
Hmm.
We're gonna have tons of them.
Okay. So let's explore changing the parking lot itself. If we don't need the wide swing to allow passengers to get in and out in the parking spot, can we have a section of the parking lot way out at the end where cars go just elbow to elbow and there's not even lines because every car is a different size? You just pull in, a mirror's width from the car next to you and it parks itself there. It doesn't need as much space. Can we get back some space that way? How wide is a parking spot compared to a car?
I think we're one disaster away from that being illegal. So I think somebody will try it, and then it'll come to find out that there was some kid who was taking a nap in the back seat, and the
Couldn't get
car
out.
didn't detect. The kid couldn't get out, and or heaven forbid, there's a fire or something, and somebody can't get out of their car, and so maybe the solution is that you create like an emergency hatch on the roof to get out or something. I don't know, but I think you can get rid of the aisles. So it's not so much the distance between the cars side to side in the door opening area that takes a lot of space in a garage. If you look at a parking garage, it's the aisle that you drive to get to it. You can do stacked parking. We do that all the time already. Concert venues and things where you just pull up to the car in front of you, and then there's room to get out. But then your car is stuck,
Mhm.
right? And
Well, and
in
that's where
down
you use
in
smart
parking,
scheduling. Because I've seen valets where
right,
where when you pull into the valet, they say, "How long are you going to be here?" And I say 30 minutes. They
right.
go, "Great. We'll leave you unburied." But if you say 6 hours, they're like, "Okay, well, we'll put you in the back."
Right, and then all the cars might be maybe can have the technology to talk to the garage's computer, and then it's like just constant Tetris where maybe your car never totally stops, like the whole time it's parked, it's like inching forward and inching back, and because they Tetris
Yeah.
the cars in and out, and but that allows them to get rid of the aisleways, which take up what if you look at it, it's a third of the parking garage or the aisles that we use to drive to back in and out of spaces. That could increase the capacity in expensive garages. Surface lots, I don't know that we'd ever do that because they're pretty cheap. I think to park in a surface lot is like 7 grand, but as soon as you're in a stacked parking structure, it's maybe 10 times that, and then double it
Yeah.
again if you're underground. So when you're talking over $100,000 of space, and a lot of that space is wasted for aisles, getting rid of the aisles could help.
The number I had heard for a parking spot to build parking in a garage in the 90s was 40,000 a spot. In the 90s. So I'm confident it is at least double, probably more than that now. It People think, oh, parking garage, it just prints money. It's very expensive to build uh, because
It,
it's
it,
not.
it prints gross revenue, but the reason why you have
Yeah,
to pay so much money is you're paying off the loan to build the
right,
garage in the first place.
right.
Now,
That's
maybe if you have a really old garage that's paid itself off, it prints revenue at that point, but I
mhm.
don't think so. Like,
You'll see a handful of those in New York where it is just an open lot, and you're like, how come nothing's been built here? Because it prints money. It costs nothing to have this and it prints money. Not much, but I'm not going to deal with taking on a loan and it's too
sounds
small
like
of a piece of land.
the property tax
Maybe,
is too low on that lot. That's my
maybe.
opinion, but
So what I hear you saying is the idea of completely eliminating parking lots is a bit far fetched. Even if everybody had self driving cars, even if most of them were robo taxis that people didn't own, they still have to go somewhere, especially during off-peak hours when demand is low, and we don't people don't want them lining every street in the city. So parking lots will continue to exist. We may be able to optimize them better. Now let's talk about the park and ride. There are a number of people who think that because I cover autonomous vehicles, that I am opposed to mass transit. But I am not. I've used mass transit. I've loved mass transit. When I was going to the university, when I was working downtown, there is no faster way into the city than going to the park and ride and taking the bus, except that the park and ride is always beyond capacity from about 7:45 on. What about that for a solution? The car drops me off and goes back to my house.
Perfect. Yeah, that last mile is the trouble that we run into, whether it's rural broadband and trying to get good internet access to somebody's house, or in the case of in the city, in the suburbs, trying to get people to transit. Because you think about transit does a good job taking a large group of people condensed in one area to another large group. You know, if you had a train that went from downtown Portland to downtown Seattle, great. Downtown Tacoma to downtown Seattle, great. Because you got a large customer base within walking distance of the train. It gets a little more challenging when you go from dense to distributed, and it really sucks when you're going distributed to distributed, right? You know, and try to
Right.
go from Puyallup up to some suburb of Everett, right? Like,
Right.
you know, because there's not enough customers per square mile to justify the service. So that's sort of the idea of the park and ride a lot is you get in your car, you drive, you can consolidate a whole bunch of customers in one spot, and then go to downtown Seattle where you get off and you walk, right?
Hmm.
So if that last mile, well, then that means you have to start building, you know, TriMet in Portland on the east side near the 205 freeway. They built this enormous, beautiful parking structure. It's free and it's a subsidy, you know. So when I was riding the train into Portland, I could park there and then take it in. And so park and ride lots to really be successful at getting the kind of ridership you want, that lot would have to be enormous. And at,
Hmm.
you know, $100,000 a space or $75,000 a space, that's a huge subsidy. And at that point, critics may argue, well, if you're going to be spending billions of dollars on parking garages, why don't we just widen the freeway? You know what I
Right.
mean? And
And
so
it's
and
not
just
a
have people
it's
drive in.
the difference between a park and ride and a downtown parking lot at, say, Macy's, is that Macy's is going to turn that spot over every hour or two all day. And the park and ride is going to be used one spot, one time per day, typically max. And that's,
By somebody who wants to park in it every single day as cheap as they can, preferably free.
yes,
Macy's, you got a customer who's willing to pay, I paid $7 as part of my shopping trip, you know.
sure. Or they go somewhere expensive that can afford to validate the parking. It's still not free. You're still paying for it, just maybe not upfront. Guys, there is going to be a part two to this where we are going to discuss uh, beyond the parking lot, out onto the roads, what can change, what may change, what we'd like to see, and what is absolutely impossible. We got to hype it up. This is exciting stuff. Road Guy Rob uh, joining us. And he'll be back in, I don't know, a day or two, couple days when we do part two. This has been a lot of fun. His channel's linked in the description. We may have shown some B-roll from his channel over this video without his permission, and I refuse to get it, and I will not accept it. I'm just going to use it anyway. So, guys, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it in them comments below. Subscribe, like, do what you do, and stay tuned, stay juicy. And I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots via Zoom when you're not driving a car.